welcome to this Mark's Reviews and Tutorials video. We've got a situation here with a controller. It's certainly not very old, but these controllers have what's called a split nut on the end. It's because they've got this on the heater, there's a raised edge, so they have a split nut to get the lock nut over it. It looks like this. And what's happening with this one, either it's been done up too tight or it's got a little bit hot or something like that, but it's actually clicking as you do the lock nut up. It's click jumping over the thread and keeping going. So there is a fix you can do on this. I switched, for starters, if you've got just one end playing up, I switched the lock nuts from one end to the other to see if that made any difference, and the problem stayed on this side. So probably this here is a little bit undersized or something like that. There's no damage on the thread or breaks or anything like that. So to make it run better, I did put a bit of Teflon tape on there just so it runs nicely without catching. And on this side here, the little tip is actually this split nut. You can undo it. They've just got these little Phillips head screws. You undo those and that lock nut will come off. But what you can do, just get a bit of emery paper or a bit of sandpaper, and you can actually rub that onto there and just cake a bit of this face off. This one here, there's one with the pins to locate and one's without. So just take a little bit of, this is not actually a sealing face, it just puts pressure on the stainless steel part here and pulls the plastic up to it to mate on the O-rings, the special O-rings that they have. So you can actually make that smaller, and what that'll do, of course, is when you then bolt them together, they'll be just that little bit closer together, which will give the thread a bit better bite. Now you don't take heaps off, but just give it a sand, just take a little bit off, so that the lock nut is a bit smaller, and that should then give it enough to hold and be able to come in place. So that's the secret. Split the nut, give it a bit of a sand, and you also may find these locating lugs, you may have to give those a little bit of a sand too, just so that it doesn't keep the nut apart still. It'll still locate and hold it in place in the hole. That's your screw hole there, that's the locating hole. But you don't want it to top out. I've got them now, they're both up nice and tight and beautiful. Another thing to note with these Balboa unions is it is possible to get them cross-threaded. If the socket's not looking quite thread here, of course, if it pulls it up cross-threaded, it's going to leave the sealing face open. It's got to pull it up square, so you've got to make sure you don't cross-thread this onto here. Very, very important. But there we go, they're both up, they're both now sealed, so we're all good. A couple of different things you can try. If this pipe is really out of alignment, like really low or something like that, you may need to suspend it so that you can pull it up tight. These can get really awkward. This one's really awkward. You can see that nut is right in there behind the wall. So sometimes they can be awkward, but you've got to be able to pull them up square.